London Property, home of Super Prime, where you can find informative, educational and entertaining content covering all aspects of property.
Hello and welcome to London Property, home of Super Prime. I'm your host Farnaz Fazaipour, and today we're in conversation with Jeremy Davidson, who has worked at the top end of the market in prime central London for many decades and has a very colourful view of what goes on in the market. Welcome back to the show, Jeremy.
Good morning.
So, Jeremy, please tell us what you think is going on in the property market at the moment.
That's a very interesting question. I think the answer is nobody really knows. Obviously, events have rather overtaken reality in this country in the last. We're on our fourth Chancellor of the Exchequer in 15 weeks.
Mr. October. Mr. October.
Who's Mr. October? Oh, you mean it's Mr. Yeah. Or Mr. Part of October, probably. So it's kind of, look, I mean, there's been some very big deals done. Fantastic deals, at least 10 or a dozen really spectacular deals, upwards to 100 million, between 50 and 100 million, or 40 and 100 million. And, you know, that's great. But going forward, we'll see.
And what kind of people have been buying?
If there have been 10 or 12 deals between 40 and 100 million, there's probably 8 or 9 different nationalities. No, you can't say, you can't say that they're American. And don't say because the pound is cheap compared to the dollar. That's not the real reason. American, Swiss, a couple of Middle Easterns, Europeans, and Brits.
And what do you think is going to happen? I mean, do you have any idea of what do you think is going to be next?
I mean, are we talking about the very top, or just sort of? If the very top will just exist in its own world, because if somebody's worth 5 or 6 billion or 20 billion, and they want something, and the price is told, and they're told that the price is non-negotiable, what's the point of having that money if you can't spend it? So that's fine. But the rest of the market, if you look at, I don't know. I did a search the other day of houses in sort of SW3, 7, 10, W8, between 5 and 10 million. And my view was that most of them were about 15 to 20% overpriced. So, it's going the market's, it's 5 minutes past midnight. Obviously, how can it not be?
What do you mean 5 minutes past midnight?
It's gone over the top.
Right. Okay.
You've never heard the expression 5 minutes past midnight?
I have not heard the expression 5 minutes past midnight.
Okay.
But do you think that there's going to be any changes in stamp duty?
No.
No. So we're not going to get any corrections done from that perspective? I
think what's quite dangerous at the moment for the market in general is that the last time we had interest rate rises, big interest rate rises, fine. And people say, look, anybody who's younger than about 40 has never known interest rates, of any degree whatsoever. In other words, since the credit crunch, people have only known interest rates of, around 1% and mortgages of, maybe 1.75%, 2%. They have not known what it was in the past when we thought borrowing money at 5 or 6% was cheap. For a lot of, and that would have been very cheap. But there's a lot of people who've just never known that. So now they're finding that this is what they're going to have to be paying, and kind of, that's all right. But the last time we had 5, 6, 7% interest rates, or even 10% interest rates, which we used to have years ago, or even as much as 14, stamp duty was an irrelevance. It didn't exist. Stamp duty was 1%. So now you've got a double whammy of rising interest rates, and they'll still rise. We know they're going to rise more. Rising interest rates coupled with, somebody still having to pay a huge amount of money on entry to buy a property. Those two things are insupportable. In the sense they can't. They're insupportable in the sense of things carrying on. There has to be a correction because there are two events that people's mortgage is going to be costing them much more, and they're still going to have to be paying this huge amount of money to just get the keys of the property. So that's not good. And I know everybody says, oh, but it won't happen. And they used to say that in the past as well. But as I say, this is we've never had a situation before where interest rates going up back to normal levels, but with people still having to pay a huge amount of money to actually buy a property in the first place, in the terms of, when I say huge amount of money, to actually pay tax to the government for the privilege of owning the keys to your own front door.
And actually, we were talking to somebody else in our market update series, and they were saying that the revenue that's coming in from stamp duty is nowhere near the revenue that's being lost in the VAT that is not coming in because people are not transacting. So from the surveyors to the lawyers to all the other advisors that surround a transaction.
That's what we always say. But the fact is, stamp duty is something that the government and HMRC like enormously, because they collect it 99.9% of the time, because the lawyers who are handling the transaction are basically de facto unpaid tax collectors for HMRC, and they get it every time. Whereas other taxes like capital gains tax and all the other things it's just that's just food for accountants to minimise. And yes, I know everybody says that the spin-off effects, that you don't see removal vans in the street, so removal companies are not making money, so HMRC are not making money from their revenue, that turnover is down. Yes, sure it is. But in the past, stamp duty was 1%. It's now anything up to 17%. So they get big chunks of money, and yeah, sure, maybe all the spin-off stuff like people buying new kitchens when they move home, fine, yeah, but they don't think like that in the Treasury. They think, what can we get in? They don't sort of think, well, there's all this other stuff which in theory we're missing out on. They don't think about that. They just think, what can we get in? And what they can get in is stamp duty every time.
So do you think that the correction that you're saying that will have to happen in the market is, in the short term or medium short term, going to just shift everybody over to renting? So the ones who are not getting the prices that they want, they're going to put their properties on this rental market, and that's going to help take some of this inflated price increases on the rental market and calm it down a bit.
No, I think for the foreseeable future, we'll have an impasse, because the vendors will not want to get the message. They'll still want to be selling their house for the same price that their friend across the street sold for 12 months ago. And so we're going to have this impasse situation, which always happens, where the vendors are saying, "Hey, but my house, surely, that old line, mine's better than anybody else's," kind of thing. And the buyers are going to be going, "Don't be stupid. This is the real world now." So I think nothing will happen for quite a while. And when people have often said to me, it must have been terrible working in the 90s recession as an estate agent. How did you survive? It was great, because people had to sell. And so, there was turnover. I mean, agents concern themselves only really with turnover. And, but before you get to that stage, there's a period where nothing happens. And we will go through that period. And that could be quite a long period before the vendors finally get the message and start dropping the prices to the levels where the buyers feel comfortable. And it may take some time also for the buyers, for the property. The property's only worth what a buyer will pay, and it may take really quite a long time for a buyer to be happy. I wouldn't buy now. Why? I mean,
Well, you say that, but then you could potentially, and I know that interest rates and currency have been big conversations in this particular period of time in the property market. But then what could happen is that all those buyers will end up having lots of interest from dollar-based overseas investors.
Okay, well, on the subject of the pound against the dollar, or against an even stronger currency like the Swiss franc, what the currency traders in the City of London are calling the pound at the moment?
No.
Shitcoin. There comes a point where the strength or weakness of your currency is a direct correlation as to really what the rest as your status as a nation. and how safe your country is as a place to invest. And that's why the Swiss franc is so strong. That's why it's the world's strongest currency, because it is a safe haven. So it's all very well for people to say that, oh, great, the pound's, tanking. That means it's fabulous if you're in dollars or Swiss francs. But if it goes down too much, then people say, but what is wrong with the United Kingdom? I mean, we are seen as a virtual basket case around the world. It's been like that, I hate to say it, since 2016, but it's accelerated at a rapid pace in the last few months. And so, we are not really seen as the sort of safe and stable sort of, country that we once were. I mean, we're sort of on sort of, with no disrespect to sort of Greece and Italy, we're kind of, I think they're probably somewhat higher up the scale than we are in terms of, volatility of changes of governments and just, places of uncertainty. We're not in great shape. And nobody wants to, obviously it's not something anybody really wants to talk about, but you can read endless articles about that. There's a piece in The Economist this week about, is the UK in a very bad situation of decline?
Financially.
Money makes the world go round.
Well, it does make the world go round, but, a lot of people are attracted to the UK for many other reasons.
Like what?
Like all the reasons
because they all feel safe. Getting their watches stolen in Knightsbridge.
No.
Because there are so many police on the streets. That's why, of course, obviously.
No.
What are the other? Give me a reason.
I'll give you plenty of reasons. The education, the law.
The law. The police are almost corrupt here. Come on.
No, I don't know. I don't know enough details to get into a debate about that. But it is very much it is honestly one of the most civilized places on earth. It really is. And that attracts a lot of people who come from situations that...
If you live in an SW postcode in central London, yes, it is. But I mean, I had a friend of mine moved from New York. He was flabbergasted because in New York, there are 2 policemen on every street corner, literally on every... He said, I think it was 2 months before I saw a policeman on the street.
Well, because we have less crime than in New York. and our policemen don't have guns, and you've got less things to worry about. Yeah. But do you think that we are in this situation because of Brexit? What makes you have these opinions?
I think the ramifications of Brexit will, they're kind of only really hitting home now. I mean. So and the good thing is that a lot of things will have to we'll have to reform some sort of relationship with Europe. It's the world's biggest market on our doorstep, and we've decided to kiss goodbye to it. And we can't afford not to be part of the single market.
And you don't think that we're going to replace it with
what?
With the Commonwealth and with other economies?
What in New Zealand, Australia? What are we? I mean, the world's biggest trading market is 22 miles away from
our coast.
Yes. So, and you're talking about Commonwealth countries. What have they got for us? What have we got for them? It's not. There is virtually zero trade with the Commonwealth countries. They're all too far away.
So would you agree that the prime central London market does surprise us all the time, even as professionals who work in the market?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so we've had a flat market now probably for 7-8 years. Mm-hmm. And we've had spurts of like 3 months of madness where everybody rushed, right? And that's happened a few times.
Yeah, I agree.
So it won't be inconceivable with everything that we're saying now, we will still see a mad rush of people coming with dollars and taking advantage of the sentiment, because a lot of the property market, at the top end of the property market, is sentiment driven.
Any market is sentiment driven.
But even more so here, because you add cost after cost after cost, and then it surprises all of us again.
Look, I think there are, whatever, one thinks about the damage that we've caused to ourselves, self-inflicted damage. That's the tragedy of it, is it's self-inflicted. I mean, London was the most amazing amazing city. Without hesitation, the place where everybody wanted to be. Basically, from about 1997, when Tony Blair became Prime Minister, to 2015 or something like that. It was fantastic. It was international, it was cosmopolitan. All the Europeans came here. That's why suddenly the food in the restaurants was vastly improved. Not the Brits that are going to do that, for heaven's sake. And so that can't just go. Even with the damage of self-inflicted damage of Brexit, it can't just go. But it's definitely changed. I mean, it has changed. But there will always be people. The people who've gone are being replaced by other people. So the Europeans, and a lot of them have left, have been replaced by people from, I don't know, Turkey, India, the Far East, South America. Those are the main places where people have arrived from. And so there's always somebody, So that's why you get these spurts of activity where you hear about these deals and think, gosh, that's pretty amazing. Whether they add as much culturally as people did in the past to London itself is a debatable point.
So, do you think that the recent change in Prime Minister we've had might have had an impact on people wanting to invest in London?
Well, it's all very soon, isn't it? I mean, but she hasn't had a great start, and she may not be Prime Minister by the end of today or by the end of the week. In fact, she almost certainly won't be. So again, all of that just sort of, I think, would make people stop and think, yes, what is actually happening in this country? You mentioned earlier that people regard the UK as being a very safe and very stable place, but civilized. But part of being civilized is also stable government. And I mean, what has happened to the Tory party in the last few years is, I mean, they're committing electoral and political suicide. And it all stems back to one thing. All of this, Europe and the right-wing Tory views on Europe have done for John Major, David Cameron, Theresa May. It's all this is Brexit and its product has basically destroyed the Tory party. And they won't form the next government. So we will have a Labour government. We may well then have wealth taxes. So it's no good is coming out of any of this at all. And it's all self-inflicted. There should never have been a referendum.
If you were to advise people now about what to do, whether they were selling or buying, what would you say?
If you're selling, I would say, if you really want to sell, then put yourself in the shop window. I mean, and by that I mean, I don't mean literally put yourself in the shop window, make your property attractive. And attractive means price. I think also there's sort of far too much talk about off-market. These two words which seem to have sort of taken over the market in the last few years. That somehow, for a buyer, you're getting something special. You're not really, you're just paying more. And for a seller, you're going to get a better buy. I mean, 98% of properties need to be on the market. They're just not special enough to be off market. Only a very, very few, very small percentage of properties should. And I think now more than ever, as the market changes, you need to be in the shop windows. That's for sellers. For buyers, don't dive in. You're now holding the cards. You've got the deck of cards. For a very short period of time, from halfway through lockdown to until a few months ago, the vendor held the cards for the first time in years. For the first time since 2014, the vendor held the cards. And some vendors thought they could hold those cards for a long time and had offers and have not taken them. Time will tell whether they were right about that.
Well, you're certainly giving us all a wake-up call, because traditionally real estate agents are positive about everything all the time.
Yes, I know, yeah.
so I like to say that by the time Christmas comes, everybody will be here for their holiday, spending lots of money on buying properties, but I guess watch this space.
Well, look, I mean, of course you can always get an agent to, talk things up. That's kind of what agents do, but, one needs a dose of realism, I think.
Earlier you were saying that you wouldn't buy in London now. So I guess I have two questions to ask. One is why? And the second is, where would you buy?
The answer to the first question is, if the market's going down, why would, or if the market is going to go down, why would you buy now? I don't want to catch a falling knife.
Okay. And as our listeners are global and international, then if you were to talk to them, where would you say to buy now?
A lot of real estate markets are overheated. So I would rent.
Good time to rent. Well, maybe the fact that actually the market does need to settle and people need to get comfortable again, we're going to see more properties coming onto the rental market that are not selling, and then there'll be a bit of a stabilization in there.
Yeah, the pendulum swing, and then the big swings we've seen in the rental prices will settle down.
Well, thank you for talking to us, and we're going to hold ourselves to the fact that markets swing so quickly here, and have all our experts back talking to us again in about a quarter's time. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
To listen to Jeremy and other experts like Jeremy, head over to our podcast channel, where you can listen to close to 80 experts for all aspects of the real estate market.
Thanks for listening to the London Property Podcast. Head over to londonproperty.co.uk and subscribe to our newsletter to receive latest updates.